What up, peeps? Your friendly neighborhood Normal Coast here, speaking to you on a beautiful Holy Saturday for those who are Christian brothers on the Western in the Western churches on the Gregorian calendar, and you know, I pray that this will be a spiritually profitable Holy Week and Paschal season for you. Anyway, uh, this is the Saturday Evening Post, March 30th edition, and we've got a lot to talk about. The first thing I want to talk about is this hit piece done by Texas Monthly on Orthodox Christianity, particularly in the South. You can read for it yourself. I linked it. Hellenoscope, our wonderful friend Nick Semitakis already talked about it. He posted it on his wonderful blog, Hellenoscope, which you can tab on up there. Good guy. Anyway, third time the charm. What do I mean by this? Well, 2 years ago, a young lady named Odette Joseph, I believe that was her name, worked for NPR, and she did a piece, journalistic malpractice, if you ask me, on ROCOR and how all the unreconstructed Confederates are flocking to it, and monarchists and other people. It's all nonsense. And then the second time was Sarah Riccardi Schwartz. She did the same thing. This time she actually infiltrated a church in a ROCOR church in West Virginia, I believe. Tried to make everybody think that she was one of them, and then she did again, more journalistic dispractice, not malpractice, dispractice on them, and in neither case did it work. If anything, more and more people are coming into Holy Orthodoxy. The third time is this latest thing by Texas Monthly, which again, as I said, you can read above. What we're talking about here is a lying by structure. The very first sentence says that the people of the parishioners of St. Jonah Orthodox Church, that's north of Houston, Texas, that's Father John Whiteford's parish, the people, as they go to church, they shuffle into church. Now, I've been to many churches in many jurisdictions, and I've never seen people shuffle into church. I've seen people shuffle in nursing homes. I'm sure that there are men who shuffle on their way to the electric chair. But I've never seen people shuffle into church on Sunday morning. Just haven't seen that. So basically, read the piece for yourself. If you don't want to, just know that it's another journalistic hit job, and it's dishonest from the very start, and it's not going to work. Anyway, Father John, keep up the good work, and we'll just see where this thing goes, won't we? Okay, there's more on l'affaire Owens, about the lovely Candace Owens. Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring, I guess Jeremy Boring is the actual CEO of the Daily Wire, could continue to step in it. It's just horrible, and they're hurting their brand. And it's sad because I do like the Daily Wire. It's got some good hosts on it, and it's got some good content on it. Admittedly, it is pro-Zionist, and that's fine. I believe Israel has the right to exist, but it is Ben Shapiro is just intellectually dishonest. Let's be honest. Let's just lay our cards on the table. And unfortunately, he continues to hurt himself. And he's hurting his brand. So this is something that's not needed. There's an old saying, don't punch to the right. I don't like to punch to the right. But what they're doing to Candace Owens is unconscionable. And they're showing their true colors, and eventually they're going to decamp from the right. The Daily Wire, if they keep on going down this line, they're going to decamp from the right because, yes, Israel has a right to exist. The Jews have a right to having an ethno-state. You know what? So do people in America. So do the people in Europe. And I think it's just completely intellectually dishonest for Ben Shapiro and Dave Rubin, who I've come to admire in some ways and respect, say that, well, you know what, all these Palestinians, they should go to Europe. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, really? How about, we send all the homeless people in into your house? That is just totally unacceptable. Okay, let's go. Bridge over Maxine Waters. Okay, you have seen by now the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, Maryland. Excuse me. This helps me think. It really does. Um, the first thing I thought was that this was sabotage. Now I'm just under the opinion that we're talking about incompetence, just plain old incompetence. Uh, we'll see. I have a feeling we'll be seeing more of these things. The immediate aftermath, or the short to medium term aftermath of this, is going to be that the port of Baltimore, which I believe is the 19th busiest or largest port in the United States, is going to be closed for at least 3 to 4 months. That means that uh, commodities are going to increase, so there's going to be an inflationary cost to this, not something that the party of power would want to see. And anyway, so RFK Jr., he chose a hard lefty. I believe her name is Nicole Shanahan as his running mate. She is the ex-wife of Sergey Brin. He founded Google, and from what I understand, she's very well connected in the Silicon Valley establishment, and she's going to contribute millions to RFK Jr.'s campaign. This is good news, simply because Bobby Kennedy is pushing himself further into the left. So if he can get on about 25 states, I think he's on 7 states now. If he can get on 25 states, this will certainly help Trump in the general election. Because now there are three hardcore lefties running against Biden: uh, Cornel West, Jill Stein, and Bobby Kennedy now, which I don't really think he's a hard lefty. I think he's more of a pragmatic guy. Regardless, there we are. Okay, let's see. What else do we have going on here? Oh, Mitsotakis, the Prime Minister of Greece, I think signed Greece's death warrant. Not only is he alienating the Russians, he's getting nothing out of it from America. Because, let's be honest, Turkey holds all the cards. Whoever controls the Bosphorus has at least a couple of aces up his sleeve. And unless somebody else can take over the Bosphorus Straits, i.e., Greece or Bulgaria or even Russia, Turkey's going to hold on to it, and Turkey's going to control who goes between, the Sea of Marmara and the Black Sea. It's they've got a stranglehold on it, and the United States will never do anything to dissuade the Turks from whatever it is they want to do. We haven't in Cyprus. Turkey still has control of the northern third of Cyprus. Even though no other country recognizes that Turkish enclave or republic, whatever they call it, doesn't matter. Turkey's got it. You don't like it, you come take it. So the Greeks are in a pickle. They are not only giving away their S-300s to the Ukraine, which are very good uh, air defense systems. They're going to be left with nothing. Now they're being told they're going to get Patriots. The Patriots are ineffective. The Russians have proven that now in the Ukraine. So what's going to happen to the Greeks? Eventually, the Turks are going to say, you know what? We're going to take those islands, and you're not going to stop us. And if you try, we'll have a war. And Mitsotakis, or whoever his successor is going to be, will say, okay, fine, whatever. I mean, there's nothing we can do. So yes, Greece as an independent polity will be somewhat truncated in the future. And we could thank Mitsotakis for being such a abject puppet to Uncle Sam. And there you go. There's nothing more I can say about that. Okay. The Russians continue to plow along. They're just winning. They're getting ready to take Chasiv Yar. So they keep on taking land. Now, interestingly enough, the purpose of the Russian military operation, which now I guess is they're fully mobilizing for war, was not to take land per se, but to destroy the army of the Ukraine. They're doing that. This is what some people just don't understand. They say, well, Kharkov is just 20 miles from Russia. How come they haven't taken that yet? They're not trying to do it. Eventually they will. What they're trying to do is let the Ukrainians attack, and then the Russians, destroy these waves of attackers. Not only is the Ukrainian army being attrited, and at least 400,000 have died, but NATO is also being attrited. The only silver lining that I can see for NATO at this point is that they can see how the Russians fight and try to plan for something in the future. The problem is, if NATO sends soldiers in, their own ground troops, to augment the Ukrainian army, then that's a whole other ball of wax. And unfortunately, for NATO, if they think that even if they put in 500,000 men, that is right on Russia's doorstep. The lines of supply for Russia are very, very short. And Hitler tried it, Napoleon tried it, the Swedes tried it. The only ones who were able to penetrate all the way to Moscow were the Polish and Lithuanians when they had their intermarium. Okay, and that's only because Russia was just prostrate at the time. It was during the time of troubles. People were starving. Eventually, the Russians pushed them out. But as a rule, there is a rule about Russia. It says never march on Moscow. That's number one. Rule number two: never march on Moscow. Number three: never march on Moscow. So there you go. Anyway, I've got some comments to answer here. Specifically, I promised to reply to Petro back on the 28th. He was talking about the OCU, and here's the deal: the OCU, which was done by the West, the State Department, is a fake church, and it's being accepted as such by all the other Orthodox churches, and it should be. The only ones who haven't accepted it as fake are the Church of Greece, the Church of Cyprus, and the Church of Alexandria, and even then there have been horrible repercussions and within those churches, and which are not going to get any better. So the point is, Petros, I'm reading it here, and you said that Bartholomew does have right as the court of last appeal. That's correct, he does. According to the Council of Sardica, that right belonged to the Pope. And let me explain what's going on here. If a clergyman is thrown out of his diocese or his parish, he can appeal to the Pope if he feels that this was done unjustly. Unfortunately, the Pope cannot put him back in. What the Pope does is he can look at the case and say, no, in which case I'm not going to hear the appeal, or I'm not going to let the appeal go forward, therefore it stands, or yes, there is merit to your appeal, and he will call a council of the three closest, at least the three closest dioceses to the affected diocese in question. This happened to St. John Chrysostom, for instance, and the Patriarch of Antioch was the judge of that Holy Synod, of that particular Holy Synod, which tried John Chrysostom. Okay, now here's the thing: whatever that court decides stands. There is no more of a an appeal process. So the Pope did not have the right to hear the appeal. He had the right to decide whether the appeal could go forward. That particular power has now devolved onto the Patriarch of Constantinople because the Pope is in schism. Okay? So, yes, the Patriarch of Constantinople can hear the case in question. Thing is, though, he did hear the case in question. The thing that started this all, we forget, was back about 30 years ago when, who was that archbishop who was, oh gosh, I can't remember, but you know who I'm talking about, that he was a sketchy character. And he expected to be Patriarch of Moscow, and he wasn't. And so then he became, they sent him over to Kiev. He became Metropolitan of Kiev. And then he decided to, and then they defrocked him because he was a sketchy character. Let's just leave it at that. Led a very colorful life. So then he went to Bartholomew. This was about 28 years ago. And appealed and asked, would you let us reopen this case? Bartholomew said, no, you got to go to the Patriarch of Moscow. You're in his jurisdiction. Well, he did, and Moscow said no. So it ended there. So, anyway, the entire idea that, Bartholomew has the right to go into the Ukraine when he had already decided, even according to the Syntagmata, which are protocols or documents known as the protocols of the various churches, of the various local churches, in the Patriarchate of Constantinople, the Syntagmata for 330 years said that Kiev, the Metropolitan of Kiev, belonged to Russia. End of story. And even as recent as the Cretan-Robert Council, which was in 2016, I believe, there was no mention at all that there was any question about the Eparchy of Kiev of the Ukraine being part of the Russian Orthodox Church. So, therefore, Bartholomew, of course, plays his little games. He makes things up as he goes along, and he beclowns himself in doing so, and it's sad because that's the last thing the Orthodox Church needs is an ecumenical patriarch, or any patriarch, or any bishop for that matter, who makes things up as he goes along, and he does this because he's petulant or feels aggrieved. That is not Christian. Anyway, we could talk more and more. It's been a long, it's been an exciting week. We'll see more in the future. Anyway, ciao. Pax vobiscum.